Orphanage is home to many where their spirits were never fully laid to rest. Legend has it that this orphanage had burned to the ground with many children still left inside. And to this day, you can still hear their screams and their cries from the forest that surrounded the orphanage. Today, we will be deep diving into the legend to find out its truth. Or, as what you can say, we will be getting in the spook about the legend of Gore Orphanage. Hi, my name is Cami B. You can call me Camille, you can call me Millie, and this is Explore with Cami B, where I help you in your travels to ease your anxieties. And today we are actually going to be hopping into one of my new series on here called InTheSpook, where we get into the truths that lie behind these legends, cryptids. We're gonna get into haunted places and everything in between. But today we are going to be getting in the spook about a local legend that I actually grew up on here in Northeast Ohio. Now, obviously, if you grew up in Ohio, or at least in the northern region of Ohio, like close to Lake Erie, you have probably heard about this legend. I am so excited. I've been wanting to cover this video for so long, and I hope you guys really enjoy this video. I got a new camera. I'm so excited, but I'm also so nervous because I have not used a camera to film in such a long time. So I actually have my viewfinder over here. So if the camera's right here, if I'm looking this way, I'm looking at me. It's gonna be such a habit because I'm so used to looking at my iPhone. She's upgraded, she's new. We got a new camera. I'm actually filming on a Sony ZV-E10. It's my first time actually like recording with it, so I'm hoping it's good. Buckle in your seatbelts and let's go. Mark 5 down the highway, hit the brakes, go through the windshield into these. I watch Call Me with Chris. Call Me Chris so much. So anytime I talk about stuff like that, I feel like I gotta do that intro, if you know what I mean. So let's hop into the legend of Gore Orphanage. The owner of the orphanage was John A. Sprunger, who was born in Switzerland on August 12th of 1853. John and his family officially moved here to America in 1855, where they spent a little bit of time in Ohio before they officially moved to Bern, Indiana, where he would actually grow up. Now, this guy would actually grow up to become a businessman, and he would own several businesses throughout his life. His first one actually being a general store called Sprunger, Lehem & Co. Later on, he would actually go on to marry his wife, Catherine, in 1880, and they would have 2 children together, a son who sadly died at birth, and a daughter who sadly died when she was just only 7 years old. So not only did he own an orphanage here in Ohio, he actually started his first orphanage in Bern, Indiana, called Light of Hope Orphanage. Not many years after he opened it in 1888, it actually burned down several years later in 1894, and sadly 3 girls had passed in this fire. Now, this is the first fire of one of his businesses, and you will actually see, like, this is not like a coincidence. Like, this happens to this guy multiple times. You will find out that this guy has a pattern with fires for some reason. Now, due to this fire sadly killing 3 young girls, he actually decided to sell the rest of the properties that he did own around the area to some close colleagues of his, and then him and his wife packed up and moved to Ohio in 1904. Okay, so now we're gonna backtrack a little bit. We got a little history on the owner, a little background on this guy. Now we are actually going to hop into the history of the land before John purchased it in 1904. So before John had purchased the land in 1904, it was actually owned by a guy named Joseph Swift. And Joseph Swift had what's called the Swift Mansion built on the property in 1840. Swift also had 2 children, and sadly they both passed away on the property. His 5-year-old daughter in 1831, and then his 24-year-old son just 10 years later. Hello, future Camille recording here really quick. I just wanted to pop in and have you guys look in the top right hand corner of the first time I filmed this video, and I'm actually talking about Joseph Swift's two kids that had sadly passed away. If you look in the top right hand corner, there are two orbs that come into frame as I am talking about them. I've slowed it down so you guys hopefully can see it a little bit better. These orbs are so clear as day. It actually blows my mind. I've slowed it down, like way down, way down. You can literally see they just float around my head as I'm talking about them. I went through my whole other video and they do not show up one more time, only during this. I wanted to show you guys and throw it in this video here because I thought that that was so cool and such perfect timing. I don't know if it was a coincidence or what it was, but I wanted to show it here, and let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you think it's their spirits or just someone just wandering in? Now in 1865, Swift himself actually sold the property to a well-known spiritualist in the area named Nicholas Wilbur. And fun fact, 1865 is the year that my house that I grew up in was built, and that was like super haunted. I got so many stories if you guys are interested in that at all. I love talking about spooky stuff, as you can tell. So like I said, this Wilbur guy was actually a spiritualist, and he believed that his kids also possessed psychic abilities. And during the time that they lived in the Swift mansion, they actually would perform rituals to contact spirits in the afterworld. Wilbur himself actually had 4 children, and it actually says that they died of diphtheria on the property, but that was later confirmed to not be true at all, and they passed away somewhere else, not actually on the property, but they did pass away, sadly. Now I couldn't find anything about it, but they did sadly pass away. Wilbur himself actually passed away later on in the year 1901, which would actually leave the Swift mansion completely abandoned for 3 years. And in that time, many kids in the area would come because they hear about, you know what I mean, these rituals that were happening in this house. So it's obviously probably haunted, and so they want to check it out, they want to explore it. So many kids eventually did come to explore the abandoned mansion during this time of it being abandoned. So like I said, Sprunger and his wife Catherine had moved back to Ohio in 1904, and that was the same year he decided to buy this property that had a Swift mansion on it, as you know, many other small little buildings, as it was over 500 acres of land. It's very huge. It's like down in a valley. There's houses everywhere now. Like, you kind of go down this small little ravine and it's like the energy just like a little bit different, even though it technically is kind of like a part of a state park there now. Still feels a little eerie, if you know what I'm talking about. So the orphanage itself would actually take in about 120 children at a time, both boys and girls. Now, like I said, there were different buildings on the property. One actually was like a church. Another one was for its own newspaper called Light of Hope newspaper. Yeah, this place was so big it had its own newspaper. Really? Now, the orphanage itself was only active for just a couple years because by 1904, they already had their first case. Now, an investigation would actually be opened on Sprunger and Light of the Hope orphanage because many of the children that were staying there were sadly being abused and neglected. I am going to put a small trigger warning about like neglect and stuff like that. It's nothing too crazy, but if any little thing like this does bother you, there will be a little time skip on here just for those who are just super sensitive to this kind of topic. Now, like I said, unfortunately, the children within just these couple years after it being opened, they were being neglected by the staff. One of the many things that that was going on was that the kids were not giving proper food. They would actually be given food that would make them sick. Now, the vegetables and food that would actually be cooked for them would be used in the same pots that was used to clean their dirty clothes and underwear. This place was not kept clean and neat at all because it actually had rats running around the place, and the rats would actually climb on top of the kids while they slept, biting them, scratching them. They were literally living in rat feces. Kids would only be properly bathed every 2 weeks, and even when they were bathed, a lot of the times it was still dirty water. And on top of that, they were not given a proper education during their time there either. Now, obviously, this is in the early 1900s, and as you know, back in school, if you misbehaved or anything like that, they would take a little ruler and whack it on your hand or your wrist. But unfortunately, the force was used excessively to actually be able to see severe welts on the children as well. Now, during the time that the investigation was going on, Sprunger himself had actually admitted to all of the neglect and the abuse that was going on with the children. But unfortunately, like I said, this was in the early 1900s, and during this time, there was no law set in place for something like this to be happening in like an orphanage or something like that. So unfortunately, legally, there was really nothing that could be done, which is so sad. It's crazy to me. While this investigation was actually going on about Light of Hope Orphanage, about 40 miles away down in Collinwood, there was a school, an elementary school, that actually had caught fire. During this school fire, about 176 kids were severely injured, and unfortunately 4 of them did pass away, sadly. But during the fire, there was actually a janitor there, thank goodness, and he actually helped about a couple dozen of these kids get out. He actually saved these kids' lives. During this time, obviously he stayed in there. They somehow had accused him of starting the fire, but thank goodness the accusation was completely untrue and he was good to go. And he actually saved like a couple dozen children's lives during this travesty of a fire. John A. Sprunger officially died in July of 1960, and that same year, the doors of Light of Hope Orphanage officially closed its doors. Now, the property was officially sold to a guy in the area named Pelham Blossom, and he would actually kind of like cut parts off of the property and sell it to a little farm, like a farmer here, farmer there, farmer there. So it was actually like cut up. The property was cut up into several, you know, pieces and kind of sold off one by one to farmers in the area. Now, the land itself was officially sold off completely years later to actually leave it fully abandoned. And I believe like the state actually took it over, and now there's like some state parks in the area, which is really, really nice. The only parts that you can really see are parts of the Swift Mansion, because it was officially burned down in 1923. That way people wouldn't keep going in there. And the only thing that's left of it is sandstone blocks that you can actually still see to this day, which is kind of cool. That is the official legend of Gore Orphanage. That is the truth behind it. It's actually not as scary as you would think. This place not only brings paranormal investigators from around the world. There have been multiple people that have gone there where I have seen, and me personally have gone there and seen things, heard things. There have been others that have gone there that they've not seen a single thing. Like I said, this place is super haunted if you believe in it, or it can be not haunted. But something that is kind of cool that this place comes with is its own ritual. If you're interested in that, let me know in the comments below, and I will actually do a part 2 to my Gore Orphanage in the Spook series. Now, like I said, I've been there before, and I would love to go do an actual investigation, like have my equipment, have my spirit box, have my EMF, you know, maybe hop on and do, you know, the Estes method, because like I guess that's super popular now to do. Leave it down in the comments below if you want me to do an official investigation of Gore Orphanage and maybe do one of these rituals, because I've never done it. My mom accidentally did it, and it was the most terrifying night of her entire life. If you guys enjoyed this In the Spook series, give this video a like. I would absolutely love to do more of these. Let me know what places or topics you want me to talk about next. Obviously, subscribe if you like. That'd be dope. Whatever, you know what I mean? Follow my TikTok. And if you are more of like a reader type person, you would like to read more of this stuff rather than hear me blab about it, you can head on over to my Lemonade because it's always there. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.